The $2 billion offer sitting on the table for professional tennis isn't a partnership proposal. It is a hostile takeover of a distressed asset. Right now, the sport is facing its own civil war moment, a brutal battle for control over the calendar, media rights, and wealth distribution. On one side, you have the old guard, the 4 Grand Slams protecting a century-old monopoly. On the other, new money, the Saudi Public Investment Fund leveraging player discontent to buy the sport. Today, we are investigating the financial mechanics behind the biggest power shift in sports history. To understand why this takeover is even possible, you have to look at the broken economy of tennis. If you pull up the data on player revenue share, the disparity is stark. In major American leagues like the NBA or NFL, the collective bargaining agreement ensures a revenue split of roughly 50-50. Players get half the pie. In tennis, that number is closer to 17%. This creates a massive middle-class crisis. While Novak Djokovic or Carlos Alcaraz are global corporations, the 150th best player in the world is often losing money. After paying for travel, coaches, and physios, they are operating at a net loss. This is the only major global sport where being in the top 0.01% of your profession doesn't guarantee a living wage. Let's look at the revenue waterfall to see where the money actually goes. The 4 Grand Slams, Wimbledon, Australian Open, French Open, and US Open, act like separate fiefdoms. In 2024, they collectively generated about $1.5 billion. Yet the total prize money distributed was only around $250 million. That is a massive margin retained by Grand Slam Inc. For example, the US Open alone generated over $550 million, mostly from sponsorships and broadcast deals, but only paid out roughly $75 million in prize money. The problem is structural. Tennis has 7 different governing bodies: the ATP, the WTA, the ITF, and the 4 separate slams. It is a bureaucratic nightmare. Because the rights are fragmented, they can't sell a unified league pass to a broadcaster like Apple or Amazon. Instead, they sell piecemeal rights, leaving hundreds of millions on the table. Historically, the Grand Slams have used this fragmentation to suppress player wages. They argue that they need the money for infrastructure and grassroots development. But when you look at the books, Wimbledon is generating over $120 million just in sponsorships, while players are fighting for scraps. This revenue gap is a critical vulnerability. The players know they are being underpaid relative to the value they generate. The top stars drive ticket sales and TV ratings, yet they have almost no say in how the profits are shared. This dissatisfaction has created a perfect opening for a disruptor with deep pockets. The Saudi PF didn't just wake up and decide to buy tennis. They saw a broken business model and realized they could offer the players a better deal. The economics are shattered, and that is exactly why the sharks are circling. If you look at a map of the current tennis calendar, the visual is defined by pure, unadulterated chaos. We are looking at over 60 events scattered across the globe with absolutely zero coherent narrative structure. Players are forced to zigzag between continents, switching from clay to grass to hard courts, destroying their bodies in a logistical nightmare that leaves them burned out by September. This inefficiency is the market failure that the Saudi Public Investment Fund is exploiting. They aren't just trying to slap a sponsor logo on a few nets. They are running the live golf playbook to buy the calendar itself. The strategy is simple but ruthless. If you control the schedule, you own the sport. The first major domino in this strategy has already toppled. In October 2025, the ATP confirmed a landmark deal with Surge Sports Investment to launch a new Masters 1000 tournament in Saudi Arabia, scheduled to begin in 2028. This isn't just another tournament. It is the first expansion of the top-tier category in 35 years. It serves as the beachhead. By securing a mandatory stop on the tour right before the Australian Open, they have forced every top player to engage with their ecosystem. But the PIF's ambition is much larger than one event. The reported $2 billion offer is a bid to merge the men's and women's tours into a unified entity, effectively creating a rival super tour that challenges the historical hegemony of the Grand Slams. The Grand Slams are understandably terrified. For a century, Wimbledon and the US Open have been the gravitational center of the tennis universe. They dictate the terms, but a unified PEF tour threatens to sideline them effectively. Their countermove is the Premium Tour. This is a radical proposal to streamline the calendar into roughly 16 elite co-ed events. Think of it as the Premier League of tennis, the 4 slams plus 10 to 12 Masters level events. The goal is to kill the clutter. No more tiny 250 level tournaments that lose money and dilute the product. Just the top 100 players facing each other constantly in high-stakes matches. This is where the cartel allegations become critical. The Professional Tennis Players Association, or PTPA, argues that the current structure is an illegal monopoly designed to restrict trade and suppress wages. They are leveraging antitrust pressure to force the hands of both the slams and the ATPA. The slams hate the idea of a tour they don't fully control, but they hate the idea of a Saudi-owned tour even more. They are being forced to innovate at gunpoint. The Premium Tour promises to solve the burnout issue and increase prize money, but it comes at the cost of tradition. It would decimate the smaller tournaments that have been the lifeblood of the sport's regional popularity for decades. The battle lines are now clearly drawn. You have the slams trying to consolidate power to protect their massive margins, and the PIF trying to buy power to diversify their nation's economy. The players are the pawns in the middle, finally realizing that their participation is the only asset that actually matters. Without stars like Alcaraz or Gauff, Wimbledon is just a garden party. This realization has shifted the leverage. The slams can no longer act as benevolent dictators. They have to compete for the labor force against a bidder with essentially infinite resources. So how does this war actually end? We need to model the potential outcomes. If we pull up the scenario analysis table, we see 3 distinct futures. First, the status quo. This is the worst case scenario where the fragmentation continues. Player burnout accelerates, and the revenue gap widens until the talent pool eventually dries up. Second, the PF-led takeover. In this world, the ATP and WTA effectively merge under Saudi ownership. Players get massive guaranteed contracts, similar to the Lev Golf model, but the sport faces intense geopolitical backlash and a potential fracturing of the global fan base. Third, the Premium Tour consolidation. The slams and the top Masters events form a breakaway league. Revenue skyrockets due to a unified media deal, but the middle class of tournaments is wiped out. The most likely reality in the near term is a messy hybrid. We will see the Saudi Masters in January, increased prize money from the slams to stave off the revolt, and a slow, painful death for the smaller events. But regardless of which specific future plays out, there are 3 massive career takeaways here that apply to any industry facing disruption. First, leverage comes from unity. The only reason the players are getting a pay raise right now is because the PTPA proved that collective bargaining is the only check on monopoly power. For decades, tennis players negotiated individually and got crushed. Once they organized, even loosely, the billions started flowing. In your own career, remember that fragmented labor always loses to consolidated capital. If you want to change the terms of the deal, you must aggregate your bargaining power. Second, the calendar is the real monopoly. We often think power comes from owning the physical assets, the stadiums, or the courts. But in the attention economy, power comes from owning the dates. The Grand Slams are valuable because they own the prime weeks in the calendar. The Saudis understand this perfectly. They aren't just trying to buy stadiums, they are trying to buy time slots. If you control when the event happens, you control the media rights, the sponsorship cycles, and the player logistics. In business, always look for who controls the timeline, not just the inventory. Third, bundle rights for value. The Premium Tour concept proves that a bundle is worth exponentially more than the sum of its parts. Currently, tennis sells media rights tournament by tournament. It is inefficient. By bundling the top events into a single package, they can approach Amazon or Netflix with $1 billion proposition. It is not just about TV, it is about data. In the age of sports betting, real-time shot data is liquid gold. Currently, that ownership is fractured. A unified tour aggregates that data into a single high-frequency trading product. If you are selling a product, stop selling individual features, bundle the rights, bundle the data, and bundle the access. That is where the value lives. The winners of this war won't necessarily be the best tennis players, they will be the best negotiators. The athletes who understand their value as media assets and leverage the competition between the old guard and new money will secure generational wealth. Those who just shut up and play will be left behind in the old economy. We are witnessing the single greatest wealth redistribution in sports history. Whether it's the Saudi takeover or the Grand Slam counterattack, one thing is absolutely certain. The old era of fragmented tennis is dead. Consolidation is now inevitable, and for the first time, the talent is finally getting paid. If you want to stay ahead of the massive business trends disrupting global sports, hit that subscribe button right now. We are just getting started here.